In this video, we are going to review the concept of a linear equation from Algebra 1. So, our working definition for a linear equation is going to be any equation that forms a line within its graph. So, right now, in this video, we're going to talk about two particular forms. So, you want to know different forms of functions or equations. And these two are used a lot to show a line. So the first form is probably the most common one that we all know. It's called slope-intercept form. Okay, and that is an equation in the form y equals mx plus b. So m, do some switching colors. So m here, m is what we use to denote the slope, or another way to call it that you may hear is called the growth factor. And the b value represents the y-intercept. So it's the point 0b on the graph of this line. So in Algebra 1, we get really good at recognizing and graphing these. So that's the first one. Okay. The second one we'll talk about today is a common one used. It's called standard form. And so standard form looks like this. It's an equation where I have something times x plus something times y equals a constant c. So a couple things about this. So in this form, a and b are integers. So I've seen some videos on YouTube that say a has to be positive. I'm here to say it doesn't have to be positive. In fact, it can be negative. In this form, we don't want fractions for a, b, or c. So let me erase this and say a, b, and c are in the set of integers. So this script z is an integer. That's pretty bad. So let's just show you a quick example. So the neat thing about this is that these two forms are equivalent, meaning I can go back and forth between each form. So let's look at this. So I'm going to show you two equations. So the first one is going to be the equation y equals negative 5x plus 4. And so, in this form, right, I'm going to draw a quick graph over here. This is a sketch. To graph these, the b value is the y-intercept. So here is 4. So we have a y-intercept value there. And the slope is negative 5. So remember, to graph the slope, an integer slope, we think about as a fraction over 1. So negative 5 over 1. And so what this tells me is the numerator of the slope tells me how far up or down to go. So a negative sign is down. So I'm going to go down 5, which gives me to negative 1. And then I'm going to go to the right 1. So positive 1. So I get this here. And then I'm going to eyeball this. We get a line like this. Okay. Now, if I take this, okay, I can rewrite it to make it look like this. And so, an equivalent form of this equation, the standard form, is this one. It is 2y plus 10x equals 8. And to show they're equivalent, I can actually take this equation, solve it for y, and it should be equivalent to this. And so I'm going to do that, and I'll show you another way, and then verify my calculator. So I'm going to subtract 10x, so I get 2y equals negative 10x plus 8, and divide everything by 2. So 2y over 2 is y, negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So they're equivalent forms of the same line. Another way to look at these equations is I can look at these by the intercept. So a popular way to graph these is to look at the intercept. So remember, an x-intercept always has the form of something comma 0, and the y-intercept looks like 0 comma y. So what I can do is I can plug a 0 into this equation for the y value, and I can solve for x. Let's do that. So I'm going to let y equals 0, so I get 2 times 0 plus 10x equals 8. So if that goes away, so I get 10x equals 8, so I'm going to divide both sides by 10, so I get x equals 4/5. And so that point there is the point 4/5, 0. Then when I do the same thing, but I plug in x equals 0 to find the y-intercept, right? I get this. This goes away, and then I know 2 times 4 is 8. So that's why this is 0 comma 4. And so just to verify on my calculator, I'm going to graph. So I'm going to turn my calculator on. Always an important thing to do with calculator. I'm going to clear any equations I have in here. So I'm going to type this in. I'm going to go y equals, so the negative button is always this white button, so make sure you don't use the other button, negative. 5x, whoops, I hit the wrong button, so negative 5x plus 4. I'm going to graph this, and I can see that it looks like if I hit trace, I can see 0, 4 is there. Then as I scroll down, I may not get right on it, right? But it seems like 4/5 is about 0.8 close. To really see it, I look at the table. I find out when y is 0. So y is 0 isn't on here. So one way to do that is, what I do is I go to second window. I go down to independent. I select the option ask. When I go back to my table, it's blank. Then I can type in 4/5. I can see if that actually gives me 0. And you can see how that gives me 0. It verifies my math. So, you want to know how to recognize if if an equation forms a line. And these are the 2 most popular equations that we use. So we want to know them. In a later video, we will talk about a third form.